Check out FlipsideGaming.com for all your gaming needs. Use the promo code HEROES to save 10% on all orders over $10 and support the channel at the same time. Hey there, this is John from Heroes and Legends, and welcome to the second day of official core set 2019 previews. We have a ton of cards to look at today, so I want to get started pretty quickly here going through all of these. I won't go through my whole spiel, but again, if you just want to support the channel and you're looking for a way, then just check out the description below. There's a few ways there. With that being said, let's get right into it. Yesterday I showed you this card, but we couldn't see the name of it. It was a card that was open in one of the Dominaria packs. We got a better picture of it today. Still hasn't officially been confirmed, but it looks pretty legit in its roots and air. These two cards have been previously shown, and we have talked about them in other videos, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on them. But now Daybreak, Chaplain, and Prodigious Growth have been officially revealed to be in the set by Wizards. Johnny's Last Stand, 2 white and 2. It's an enchantment. It's a rare. Whenever a creature or planeswalker you control dies, you may sacrifice a Johnny's Last Stand. If you do, create a 4/4 white avatar creature token with flying. When a spell or ability an opponent controls causes you to discard this card, if you control planes, create a 4/4 white avatar creature token with flying. It's actually not a bad enchantment, I don't think. It is another one of those enchantments. It's going to come on the battlefield and do nothing all by itself, and I don't like that. But it does put your opponent in a weird situation. Sometimes when it comes to combat, they may have to just take a creature instead of letting it trade or die. So if that's the case, then, for 4 mana, this might not be the worst thing in the world. Also, too, if you have a sack outlet, you'll have more control over actually getting that flyer, perhaps, and that could be pretty decent as well. In Limited, I think this is a great card. This is probably first pickable in a lot of packs. At some point, you're going to have a creature die, and if someone tries to make you discard a card, this is awesome, too. And there's a lot of that in black in the set from what we've been seeing. Standard, could it get there? I'd at least want to try it out. I feel like there's some potential maybe in like white-black midrange or something like that to try this, even if it's out of the sideboard against certain matchups. I just feel like there is some potential. I don't like spending the 4 for nothing, but if I had a good sack outlet and I thought I could make it so this wasn't a chore to pull off, I might test it at least. Next card comes to us from an Italian language preview. It's Contrite Cleric, white and 1, creature, spirit, cleric, flying. Sacrifice this and exile all cards from target player's graveyard. This is actually pretty good. Let's talk about Standard first, because we know there are some graveyard shenanigans that go on there. Godpharaoh's Gift decks, the Scarab God, of course, is still a thing for a little while longer. So having something like this that's maybe coming out of sideboards of some builds, I think could be very realistic and Standard. Beyond that, I even think Modern Legacy, you might see this out of sideboards. I mean, there's some other good hate out there, like Rest in Peace, of course. But I could see some decks like maybe, Bant Spirits or something like that, wanting to run this also because it is a spirit, maybe even main deck in some cases. Aside from that, though, in Limited, it's a good card, just even if you're not worried about graveyard interactions. A 2/1 flyer for 2 is very, very playable a lot of the times. And if you're not main decking it for some reason, the second you see your opponent go to the graveyard, bring it in for Game 2 or Game 3. Cleansing Nova, 2 white and 3, sorcery, rare, choose 1, destroy all creatures, or destroy all artifacts and enchantments. This is a phenomenal board sweep. This is a fantastic rare in the set. This will go right into some standard control builds, no doubt. Right now, a lot of them use Fumigate. Fumigate's been popular really since it came out, but this is awesome because it lets you have a little more versatility and deal with a wider range of problems at times. You don't get the life gain, but now you have the option maybe to get rid of artifacts and enchantments. The only thing that's a little awkward about that is white has so much enchantment removal that you could find yourself in a catch-22 where you need to get rid of artifacts, but at the same time you have your enchantments out holding stuff back. So I suppose that could happen, but really I'm fine with that because this card is going to do work for you, no doubt. This could see some modern play too because of the versatility, quite honestly. And don't forget about Commander. Basically, if you're in white in Commander, you're going to want a copy of this. First pickable in Draft 2. I mean, this is a sealed bomb as well. This card's got it all. Shield Mare. Okay, we're going to see a whole cycle of horses today. So, hey, congratulations to the horse tribal folks out there. This one's 2 white and 1. It's an uncommon, 2/3. And this can't be blocked by red creatures. When this enters the battlefield or becomes the target of a spell or ability an opponent controls, you gain 3 life. I feel like this is actually pretty economical. I would play this in Limited. A 2/3 for 3 is just fine, nothing crazy. But then the fact it gains little life is a nice bonus considering the casting cost here. And if I didn't main deck it for some reason, if I'm up against a red deck or any aggressive build, this is great to bring in. The life gain's great. The 2/3 body is going to be good on turn 3. And of course, being able to get past red creatures on the battlefield is not a bad thing either. All of these that we're going to see today that are in the main colors, they all can't be blocked by one of the enemy colors. So I think that's actually pretty sweet and makes them at least maybe sideboard potential even in standard if one color happens to become very, very powerful. Like, I don't know, red or something like that. So I do think this card maybe has a little potential there. Also, too, it is the same color as Crested Sunmare, so get to brewing. Metamorphic Alteration. This is a 2/1 or a rare enchant creature. When this enters the battlefield, choose a creature. Enchanted creature is a copy of the chosen creature. I really like the versatility here because I can either play this on one of my own things and make it the best creature on the board, a copy of it, or I can play it on one of my opponent's things and make their best thing a copy of the worst creature on the board. So that versatility for 2 mana actually feels pretty good. It is an enchantment. We do see a lot of things that interact with enchantments so far in the set, so maybe you can find some synergies in a draft or sealed there. So yeah, this is very playable, maybe first pickable in some packs, I would say, in draft. What about standard? Could you play it there? I don't really think so. I feel like it's just a little too dependent on board state, even though it is economical. So I don't really see it there, but I do think it is a good limited card. This could be fun in Commander too, where there's a lot of strong targets on the battlefield. Mistcaller. Alright, this is 1 blue. It's a Merfolk Wizard Rare 1/1. Sacrifice Mistcaller until end of turn. If a non-token creature would enter the battlefield and it wasn't cast, exile it instead. Wow, okay. So unlimited, it might not feel good when you open this and it's your rare. Let's face it. But, again, it's one of those cards that if your opponent does start messing around with the graveyard, alright, sideboard it in. Maybe you'll be able to find a moment where you can kind of slow them down, if nothing else. Now, what about standard or any other format, as a matter of fact? I do think this does see play. Now, standard, it could be slightly awkward right now because it doesn't really help against the Embalm, Eternalize effects. So, yeah, it's not going to be great there probably unless all of a sudden we find a true reanimation deck or something like that come into the format. And that could happen, maybe not right now, but perhaps post-rotation. So it's good that this exists. I'm glad they designed it and it's in the environment. That's a good thing, just in case. Now, outside of that environment, when you start talking about modern, legacy, vintage, yeah, you do have those like show and tell style decks, sneak and show decks, that type of thing, where people are just cheating stuff into play or reanimating. And yeah, I do think this could be a sideboard card in those formats. So that's actually pretty sweet. And it only costs 1, so it's very economical for those tighter formats. Surge Mare. Okay, this is the blue horse. It costs 2 blue. It's a horsefish. I guess it's a seahorse. Yeah. Uncommon 0/5. And this can't be blocked by green creatures. Whenever this deals combat damage to an opponent, you may draw a card. If you do, discard a card, pay a blue and 1, and it will get +2/-2 until end of turn. I actually like the economy here. It only costs 2. It's a huge blocker. I mean, 0/5 is kind of nice. This is the type of card I play in Limited when I'm trying to play more slow controlling deck, and blue's the right color for that, so it makes sense. Also, the possibility that maybe at some point you might loot is pretty good too for blue, or really for any color. And then I also like those +2/-2 effects, or those plus/minus effects that are on these blue cards sometimes, because when you do have an opening, you can get some heavy damage in. In this case, this could do 4 damage under the right circumstances, but it does expose the card to direct damage or something like that, which you do want to be aware of. And then you throw in the fact that it also can't be blocked by green creatures, and you have a pretty good package here for 2 mana. Much like the last card we saw, and really true of all of them, maybe out of the sideboard and standard if you have to deal with a stompy deck or something like that. But for the most part, I think this will be a solid card for you in Limited, just generally. If I'm in a more aggressive build, maybe I'm skipping it, but I could see myself running this probably most of the time if I'm in blue. Bone Dragon. This one's a mythic. 2 black and 3. Dragon Skeleton 5/4 with flying. 2 black and 3. Exile 7 other cards from your graveyard. Return Bone Dragon from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. Okay, when I first looked at this card, I thought to myself, it doesn't feel super mythic necessarily, but this is a very good limited card. That might be the reason it is mythic, because this can be backbreaking in a game of draft or sealed. Simply, a 5/4 flyer for 5 is pretty good. Then when it goes to the graveyard, if it's not exiled, well, later in the game it comes back. I mean, 7 cards is a lot to exile, but it's not impossible, especially in a drawn-out game with board stalls and such. So if this card comes back once, if it comes back twice, you're probably winning that game in most circumstances. So I can understand why they don't want this interfering into that limited game all that often, because it is strong. Now, when you start talking about standard, it's kind of expensive, and again, you might say 7 cards is a lot, but I think there's going to be times where you're surprised how quickly you might get 7 cards in your graveyard. I mean, think back to the old days of Delve, where people were playing Treasure Cruise and stuff like that. Like, it seemed like it was a lot easier than you would have thought to exile a bunch of cards from your graveyard, and I feel like this one might surprise you. If there's one card that people overlook from the set and then kind of discount it and it shows up at the Pro Tour, this might be the one, because I feel like this is better once you sit down and play with it than it looks like it is on paper. And it's persistent. Maybe it could be in a control or mid-range deck and actually be pretty decent there, especially control decks, a lot of stuff going to the graveyard, and those games could be long and drawn out anyway. One other place where this might show up in the future, maybe in Standard, if there's ever a mill-centric reanimation deck that shows up, and if that happens, don't think it will be till after rotation. But if it does, this could be a good utility card there. If you can't reanimate the big thing you really want to, for whatever reason, this could be a backup plan to just put something sizable on the battlefield that can do damage. So it's just something to watch, maybe for the future more than anything. Apicura Blood, black and 4, vampire, common, 4/4. Whenever you gain life, each opponent loses 1 life. So the first thing I thought of when I saw this card is Commander players. If you're looking for another card to combo with Exquisite Blood, well, here you go. A nice redundancy. Now, speaking of that combo, look closely at the art. At the hands of the vampire, it actually looks like the art from Sanguine Bond. That's actually pretty sweet. That's an awesome Easter egg. Now, outside of that combo, is this card any good? In Limited, yeah, sure. Sealed or Draft, I'd play this. 4/4 for 5 with that ability, and there are life gain spells and different synergies going on in white and black in this set. So in Draft, this probably gets even better, but it's probably just fine in Sealed, too. Now, in Standard, could it get there? Well, I don't know. There would have to be a really solid life gain deck in place, and that's not impossible, but I might still want to play a creature like this at 5, and that gets a little shaky for me. I feel like there could be a life gain deck, though, considering all the life gain pieces we're getting in this particular set, combined with what already exists as far as the vampires and life gain from the Ixalan block. I don't know, maybe it's a white-black mid-range deck, maybe it's like an Angel Vampire thing. We'll have to kind of see what people brew, but I think there's potential if nothing else. Izareth the Awakener, 2 black and 1, it's a legendary creature, human wizard. It is a rare 3/3 with Death Touch. When this attacks, you may pay X. When you do, return target creature card with converted mana cost X from your graveyard to the battlefield with a corpse counter on it. If that creature would leave the battlefield, exile it instead of putting it anywhere else. One thing to point out, that corpse counter is just a memory device. So if you have some sort of trick to get rid of it, it doesn't mean the card doesn't get exiled. It still will get exiled. So just something to keep in mind there. Is the card itself any good? Well, in Limited, it's great. I mean, definitely a first pickable rare for sure. It's a 3/3 with Death Touch for 3. That alone is real solid. And aside from that, the ability will come in real handy, especially in a long, drawn-out game with a board stall. You can start to maybe get some stuff back, even if it's just one thing. Even if your opponent can block it and kill this, you can get one major important thing back with evasion. That could be pretty big. The card feels really good there for Draft and Sealed. I don't know about Standard right now. Maybe post-rotation. I feel like we could see a full-on reanimation style deck in the future. But if we do, I think it's going to be after a lot of stuff rotates out from the Kaladesh and Amonkhet block. I just feel like there's a lot of powerful cards from those old sets that are holding some things back and some strategies back right now, and that could be one of them. One thing you do have to realize, though, about this card is, yes, it is reanimation, but you are paying the mana. You don't have to worry about colors, which is nice, so you could have some big, like, multicolored dragon in your graveyard and just play it for just 1 or 2 colors, and that's awesome. But you are still paying the mana. So this isn't hyper efficient compared to maybe some of the other ways you can reanimate that already exist in Standard. Nightmare's Thirst. This costs a black. It's an instant uncommon. You gain 1 life. Target creature gets -X till end of turn, where X is the amount of life you gained this turn. So just as a 1 casting cost instant that's going to hit something for -1/-1, it's not a bad little combat trick. Not a bad way to deal with a problematic 1 toughness creature. Always good to have a -X spell in your deck if you can find one. Don't expect this to cross over into Standard. Obviously, with that condition, there's just more efficient removal in black. Open the Graves. 2 black and 3. Enchantment rare. Whenever a non-token creature you control dies, create a 2/2 black zombie creature token. So it is a 5 casting cost enchantment that does absolutely nothing on its own. I don't really like that. However, if you can get this on the battlefield, the future turns of your game are going to be relatively economical from time to time. Now, if you're already behind, this is a horrible draw, and it's not going to help you catch up, and that's not cool. But if you're in a board stall, you're trying to slam the door on a game, this does give you the opportunity to maybe be a little looser with attacks and blocks, knowing you're going to get some tokens backing you up later. So it's not the worst thing in the world in those situations. I would say if I'm playing maybe Dimir colors and I have a little bit of a control element or a control plan going on within my deck, then yeah, this is definitely playable, especially if I have some low casting cost, high toughness creatures to kind of get me through the early portion of the game. Now, the good news is, in the limited environment, it does appear that the Rakdos colors are playing a sacrifice for benefit strategy. So you're going to see that aristocrat-style strategy within Draft and Sealed. And if you can play around that, then this could be a good pickup for you. But this isn't for every limited build. You're going to have to be pretty confident that your deck's going to be able to carry this at the 5 spot, and you can still be okay taking that turn off to do this. Standard, yeah, I just think it's too slow and conditional on board state. It would work really well maybe with board sweeps in some situations, but then it would be awkward trying to run board sweeps and this and creatures. That doesn't really feel like a cohesive build to me. I don't think you'll see it there. Plague Mare. Okay, here's the horse that you'll find in black. It's 2 black and 1, Nightmare Horse, uncommon 2/2. This can't be blocked by white creatures. When this enters the battlefield, creatures your opponents control get -1/-1 till end of turn. Kind of feels like Chain Whirler a little bit in that regard. The only problem is Chain Whirler is a much, much better card. Of course, this is only an uncommon, but having that 3/3 first strike body on Chain Whirler for the same converted mana cost, although be it 3 on color, is just super powerful. This is going to be fine for you in limited, though. Like, I'll play this and be really happy with it. Even if my opponent doesn't have a lot of 1 toughness creatures, this could lead to a very profitable attack for me by shrinking all their stuff for a turn and then attacking with my other things. Could be pretty decent. Again, you're trying to build that horse deck if you're a casual player, commander, or something like that. Well, here's another one for you. Alpine Moon. I like this one. 1 red, it's an enchantment rare. As this enters the battlefield, choose a non-basic land card name. Lands your opponents control. With the chosen name, lose all land types and abilities, and they gain tap, add 1 mana of any color. So this is, on the surface, maybe another Tron hose. That's the first thing I thought of. However, I thought more about it. I said to myself, you know what? Yes, this does host Tron. But maybe, if I'm playing Tron, I might want to play this against certain matchups. Like, you could use this against Ghost Quarter or Field of Ruin, for example. Now, of course, you'll need red in your Tron deck. Maybe you're playing red-green Tron or something like that. But regardless, I feel like it's very playable out of the board there. This is another one of those cards that I think you'll start seeing on a lot of sideboards in Modern, Legacy, Vintage. It shuts down things like even Wastelands and Strip Mines or what have you. So it has a lot of utility. Even within Standard, you might see it show up because some of those lands are pretty good. Field of Ruin, of course, being one of them. But if any of them start to feel like they're getting more and more powerful in the environment, expect this to step in. Lightning Mare, 2 red for a 3/1 elemental horse, uncommon. It can't be countered. It can't be blocked by blue creatures. Pay a red and 1, and we'll get +1/+0 till end of turn. Now, usually these 1 toughness red creatures I'm not a big fan of in limited, but this one's a little different. First off, if you're playing against blue, awesome. If you didn't main deck it, bring it in, of course. But aside from that, it's still pretty decent considering it's a 2-drop. Now, granted, 2 on color, so maybe it's not always a turn 2 play. Maybe it's a turn 3 play some of the time or what have you. As far as Standard goes, like the other ones, I don't see this being main decked necessarily, but maybe a sideboard option against certain decks in the future. Alright, this next one was from a Japanese language preview, Sarkhan's Broken Seal. So this is the translation we have now. Sometimes these are a little touch and go, but let's see what we got. A red and 3 enchantment. Whenever you cast a creature spell with power 4, 5, or 6, you may target a creature, planeswalker, or player. If that's the case, this will deal 4 damage to the chosen target. Whenever you cast a creature spell with power 7 or greater, this will deal 4 damage to all creatures and planeswalkers each opponent controls. Wow. Okay. So I have my first gripe that I had with the card a few moments ago. It's an enchantment that's doing nothing on its own. You're paying 4 for it. You're taking the turn off. I don't like that. But after that point, you're in a situation that whenever you play a large creature, you have a big effect coming out of this thing. 4, 5, and 6 being able to do 4 damage to the face or to a creature or planeswalker is pretty significant. 7 or greater, which won't happen as often, but being able to kind of do a small board wipe is amazing, right? 4 damage to all creatures and planeswalkers to each opponent, so it doesn't touch your stuff. That's pretty powerful. So there are decks where this is going to be great. Let's talk about limited first. Obviously, don't play it if you don't have a lot of large creatures. But if you do, and maybe some ramp behind it or something like that, it looks like green and red are definitely dabbling in the world of ramp again, then this could be a good card for you. It's not for all builds, obviously. If you don't have the right amount of early plays and maybe some ramp to get to your bigger things and enough big things to make this relevant, skip it. It's not going to be great in your deck. But if you feel like you have the right pieces there, go for it. You could have a very good build on your hands. Now, aside from that, what about standard? Well, it does have the big issue that it has a powerful effect, but you have to take the turn off to get there, and 4 is pretty expensive, especially in this current standard. So that's a problem. It's also a red card, so it's competing with a lot of really viable red strategies. The other thing is you could build around this and try to make a standard deck. I just can't help but think it might be a little clunky, though. Forget about a commander. This will be great there. You'll be a target when you put this down, obviously. But if you have some big creatures, which you probably do in most commander builds, this could be very, very powerful. Goreclaw, Terror of Qualsisma. This is a green and 3. It's a rare legendary bear, 4/3. Creature spells. You cast with power 4 or greater, cost 2 less to cast. Whenever this attacks, each creature you control with power 4 or greater gets +1/+1 and gains trample until end of turn. Wow. Okay, first off, for limited, this card's amazing. Like, first pickable all day long. 4/3 for 4. It's not even double green. Like, this is splashable. So you get this thing out. You get to ramp a little bit into your larger stuff after that point. That's cool. And then it also creates this opportunity to push damage across 2 at times. It might seem obvious from the wording there, but it is important to point out that this is actually attacking in as a 5/4 trample. So, all things considered with that casting cost, that's really good. Not to mention the buff it can give other creatures. This is very versatile, economical. I can't say enough good things about it when it comes to the world of limited. Could it see standard play? The green decks are pretty stacked, but I'd try it out. I mean, being able to put this down on turn 4 and maybe ramp into some larger things for the end of your game could be good, but also I'm paying attention to that +1/+1 and trample effect too. Commander players, were you looking for a bear commander? Well, there you go. Okay, our next one comes to us from a Chinese traditional language preview, so again, hopefully the translation is mostly correct. Hungry Hydra, X in green, it's a Hydra, and when this enters the battlefield, it will come in with X +1/+1 counters. It can't be blocked by more than one creature. Whenever this is dealt damage, put that many +1/+1 counters on it, but it must survive the damage to receive the counters. So again, another solid green creature here, honestly, a rare. I like that this can't be blocked by more than one creature. It kind of puts your opponent in a tough spot some of the time if this is big enough, because they're not going to be able to joint block. So they either take the damage or they chomp and make this thing bigger, and all those options don't sound all that good to me. So because of the corner it kind of paints them into, I feel like this might see standard play. Again, I would at least try it in these green stompy decks and just see how it plays, especially with a little ramp behind it. I don't know, might be decent. In limited, it's a bomb, first pickable, probably all day long in draft. The card is incredible there. It definitely can beat down your opponent. It's a little annoying that it doesn't have trample, but that's okay. I can get over that. I think it's still good enough. Vine Mare, the green horse now. 2 green and 2, elemental horse, uncommon 5/3, hexproof. It can't be blocked by black creatures. Now, is this another green card that I would think about putting into the green stompy deck? Probably not really. Maybe out of the sideboard, though, against some black decks, perhaps. But I think the 5/3 power toughness, even though this is a great creature with hexproof, don't really think that's exactly what that deck is looking for. I think they want something that's a little more durable in combat. In limited, though, this will be fantastic. Aura this thing up, throw some equipment on it, and this will be fantastic, maybe game-winning. This is one of those uncommons you might even first pick some of the time. I think it could be that good for you there. Aerial Engineer, blue, white, and 2. Human Artificer, 2/4, uncommon. As long as you control an artifact, this will get +2/+0, and it has flying. Wow, it's pretty economical. Now, you have to have an artifact, so hopefully there's some less expensive ones in the set that will complement this. But we have seen so far that blue and white definitely have a artifact matters theme going on between them, and this is a good example of that. So hopefully they give us some tools to play with here. Maybe in draft this will be a little more consistent for you than sealed. But regardless, either way, I'm probably going to play this because a 2/4 for 4 is not the worst thing in the world. And even if I don't have an artifact right when I play it, potentially it could become a 4/4 flyer later in the game. Still pretty good for what I'm paying for it in limited. Brawl Bash Ogre. This is a red, black, and 2 Ogre Warrior, uncommon 3/3 with Menace. When this attacks, you may sacrifice another creature. If you do, this gets +2/+2 until end of turn. So as we're seeing more and more of these cards, it's becoming apparent now that the Rakdos colors truly have a sacrifice for benefit, aristocrat style theme going on. We saw the black card earlier that gives you the 2/2 zombie token when one of your non-token creatures dies. So this is a card that actually plays well with that type of strategy. You got a 3/3 Menace for 4, which is playable on its own actually in limited. Like, that's just fine, even for 2 different colors. But then aside from that, it has the extra ability where it can pump, sacrifice the creature. Maybe you have other things that will give you a benefit from that creature dying, and all of a sudden you have a nice little engine going on. So again, I don't see this necessarily outside of limited, but it's pretty good in that type of deck. Draconic Discipline. It's a green, a red, and 1 human shaman. This is an uncommon 2/2. Tap to add 1 mana of any color. Pay 7, tap, sack, and you get a 5/5 red dragon creature token with flying. This is actually pretty decent. A 2/2 for 3 on paper doesn't feel great, but again, Gruul colors we're starting to see as we're moving forward are dabbling in ramp, so you know what? This is going to help you ramp and fix colors. Yeah, that's actually pretty good in a lot of decks anyway. And this other ability, when later on you don't care about the mana or the color fixing as much, then you just sacrifice this and you get yourself a 5/5 flyer. Yeah, that's not bad at all. Again, very, very limited playable. Psychic Symbiont. This is a black, blue, and 4. It's a Nightmare Horror, uncommon 3/3 with flying. When this enters the battlefield, target opponent discards a card, you draw a card. So the Dimir colors do feel very controlling. There's a lot of discard going on, which we've been seeing throughout the weeks now. And this is another just very solid, economical, limited creature that's in 2 colors. 3/3 flyer for 6 is not super exciting, but not horrible. It's really about that ability, though. For 6 mana, you're getting a creature, your opponent's discarding a card, and you're gaining a card. So basically replacing this in your hands. Pretty economical in the long run. Here's another one of the Elder Dragon Legends. This is super sweet. Chromium the Mutable. It's going to cost you Esper colors and 4. Legendary creature, Elder Dragon, Mythic, 7/7. It has flash. It can't be countered. It has flying. Discard a card until end of turn. This becomes a human with base power and toughness 1/1. Loses all abilities and gains hexproof. It can't be blocked this turn. Wow. Okay. Now I'm going to admit Esper is my favorite of the 3 color combinations, but this is still my favorite one I've seen so far. This is really cool and I think could see standard play. Now usually I would look at a card like this and say, wow, it's kind of a high casting cost. It's great in Commander. If you can swing it in Limited and pay the 3 different colors, go for it. And that's usually the end of these. This time though, there's more to this card. Simply because Esper control decks already exist in the format, and this could actually be a finisher for them. Its resilience is what really has caught my attention here, and the casting cost is doable, I think, in those Esper control decks, because they're going to grind out the game anyway and play a lot of lands. So eventually, you can play this at the end of your opponent's turn, because it has flash, you can still hold back your counter magic and stuff, put this creature out, and it's going to be really hard for them to deal with it at that point forward. You're going to be able to discard some extra cards, lands, or whatever, because you will be drawing into a lot of cards with that deck too. Throw away a card and protect this thing when you need to. It's actually kind of sweet. And it also can't be countered, so it's good in a mirror matchup. This thing is no joke. I think this is the real deal. You're going to see it start to creep into those decks relatively quickly, I believe. And all the other stuff I said too. Yes, this is great in Commander and in Limited. If you can play it, because it's awesome there too. Amulet of Safekeeping. This costs 2. It's an artifact rare. Whenever you become the target of a spell or ability an opponent controls, counter that spell or ability unless its controller pays 1. Creature tokens get -1, -0. Just staple that on there. That feels weird. Okay, let's talk Limited first. Here's another rare you're going to be kind of disappointed to open probably for your Limited games. Just simply because it's a sideboard card that you might need if your opponent does have some tokens or there is a spell or ability targeting you that you're concerned about and you'd like to slow it down a little. Doesn't do a whole lot, though. It just slows it down by making them pay 1 more mana. But, I don't know. There are situations where I can see myself putting it in. There's also the artifact Matter Theme in Azorius, and this is a cheap artifact, so there could be times where that might come into play. Other than that, though, it's not super exciting. Standard, I'm glad they design cards like this. I'm not concerned right now about spells or abilities and people having to pay 1 more for them. I'm not really concerned about tokens right now in the meta. But I will say that I'm glad that we have cards just in case we need to deal with things, especially tokens, for example. Now, they may have designed this card back when they thought Amonkhet tokens may have been stronger or something like that. But regardless, I'm glad they're looking to create answers that are in the format. And as long as they consistently do that, I don't think we're going to run into a lot of the problems we ran into a couple of years ago where they had to ban cards and everything in Standard. So I do like this type of design, even though the card itself maybe isn't super exciting. Diamond Mare. You didn't think we were going to stop with that horse cycle after just 5 colors, right? 2 casting cost artifact creature, horse, uncommon, 1/3. When this enters the battlefield, choose a color. When you cast a spell of the chosen color, you gain 1 life. Okay, that's actually pretty interesting. Nothing crazy here, but in a long, drawn-out game, that could be a lot of life. especially if you have maybe a 2-color deck or something like that. So I would play this probably in a lot of limited builds, not all. And if I'm not playing it, I might just sideboard it in against a more aggressive matchup where they're trying to do a lot of damage to me early or some direct damage or something. And in that case, I think it might be worth my time. So yeah, it's not something I play 100% of the time or anything, but it actually feels like it could be okay. I like the fact that it's a 1/3 creature with that ability. I was never a big fan of like the Lucky Charms artifacts where you would play them just to gain life. I felt like that was kind of a waste unless you were up against an aggro deck, but at least this is also a pretty decent early game blocker and can deal with maybe some like aggressive 2/2s or 2/3s, stuff like that could come at you. So I actually feel like this is a pretty solid limited card. Omniscience. Now here's a reprint you might not have been expecting, unless of course you saw it on the title card at the beginning of the video, but this is a fantastic reprint. The original version of this card is going to run you around $30. If you wanted a foil, it's going to run you $60, and if you go for the invocation, which was the only other time this card was reprinted, that's going to run you over $100. This set has really brought it when it comes to reprints. Happy to see this one, even though it's at Mythic, I'm okay with that. It was originally Mythic anyway. But we just need more copies for the players that want to play this type of deck in Legacy. The Omnitel, like Show and Tell style decks, this is a key part of them. Really good reprint here. Child of the Night, another reprint that you're probably really familiar with. This is more of a limited card though, but it's not a bad one. It definitely feeds into the whole vampire lifelink thing that's going on in the white-black colors in this set. And who knows, if we do have a life gain deck in Standard and it tends to be more aggressive, this might see Standard play. Stranger things have happened. Alright, that's what we got for today. A lot of great cards again, and there's still 7 more days of reveals coming. The rest of this week and then Monday through Thursday next week. They're starting to run out of cards. Not sure what they're going to do exactly, but I will be here to report them out to you. Until next time, though, thanks for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe, and have a great day. Hey, thanks for watching. This video is made possible by the generous support of viewers like you on Patreon. Check out the description below for links to our Patreon page as well as our Amazon affiliate store, where a small percentage of all sales will also help support the channel. Finally, if you haven't had a chance yet to subscribe, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any new videos on Heroes and Legends. Talk to you again soon, and have a great day.